Hi there, everyone. Tony Costa here from Toronto Apologetics. I'd like to welcome you all onto my channel. I'd like to encourage you as well, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to Toronto Apologetics. It's absolutely free. Just go to the subscribe button below and just click on that, or maybe a bell icon. Click on that, and you'll be subscribed to the channel. I also want to encourage you to like this video and to share it with others so we can get this vital information out there. Today, I want to talk about Islam, and in particular, the Indian apologist, Dr. Zakir Naik, has gone to Pakistan, and there have been some interesting interchanges there that he's had with various people who have been asking him questions. And in today's episode, I want to address some of the comments that he made regarding the birth of Aisha, the youngest bride that Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, had. This has been a very controversial subject. You have Muslims contradicting each other. Muslim apologists keep going back and forth, contradicting each other on how old was Aisha when she married Muhammad. And so, as we shall see, the Islamic sources clearly tell us that Aisha was 6 years old when Muhammad married her, and ratified the marriage contract. And then he consummated the marriage with Aisha when she was 9 years old, and Muhammad was 54. And so, for obvious reasons, this is controversial because this would be a child bride. And under many Western laws, this would be considered an act of pedophilia and an act of statutory rape. So, what I want to do is I want to bring up the video of the Q&A that was had with Dr. Zakir Naik, and then what I'll do is I will stop it when necessary for commentary, and then I'll have some further comments to make. So let's listen in to the question that is being posed here to Zakir Naik. And incidentally, folks, this is based on the question that's going to be asked is based on an article that was posted on the Hindu, I believe it's the Hindu newspaper, Hindu Times or Hindustan Times, and it has to do with the age of Aisha, whether she was 19 or 9 years of age. So as I said, if you look at some videos of Muslim apologists debating Christian apologists, you will see you'll see a range of debates where some Muslim apologists will say, no, 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 she was not 9 years old. She was actually 18, or she was 19, or she was a teenager of some sort. So anyway, let's listen to what the question that's going to be asked of Zakir Naik.
So if any sister has any question, they're most welcome to ask.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
A few days before, there was an article on 10th of May in Hindustan Times with regards to Hazrat Aisha was 19, not 9. Can you just throw some light on that?
Sister asked a question that there was an article that came in Times of India, Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her. Her age was 19 and not 9 when she got married. Can I throw some light on that? If you read the hadith in Bukhari, which says Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, she was married to the Prophet at the age of 6, and the marriage was consummated at the age of 9. Now there are big...
As we shall see, that is exactly what the hadith says. The hadith, again, the Quran does not mention Aisha by name, but the information about her is found in the records of the sayings and the deeds of Muhammad, which are known as the hadith. We'll take a look at two of them. But so what Zakir Naik has basically said there is absolutely correct based on the Islamic texts. Let's listen on.
Many so-called modern scholars who feel that it's not possible, that is the reason they try and justify. And they say that actually the statement is 19 because in Arabic we add an ashra. So this is ashra, the 10 is missing. We said 10, 9 for 19. So the 10 is missing, therefore it sounds to be 9. Actually it should be 19. This is the assumption. But what we believe that after the Quran, alhamdulillah, is the saying of the Prophet Muhammad. And we have to check whether the hadith is sahih or not. And we realize that this hadith of Sahih Bukhari, and alhamdulillah, it's authentic hadith. But how can...
So authentic hadith. So there are many weak hadiths, but the most reliable hadiths in Islam are Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And also there's a Sunan Abu Dawud, but and Ibn Majah and some others. But the two most reliable sources are Sahih al-Bukhari and then Sahih Muslim.
logically prove today. Now, those scholars, inverted commas, who when they cannot prove logically any part of the Quran and the Hadith, they try and say there is some mistake in the assumption and the meaning is different, etc. What we have to realize that first we have to check whether the Hadith is authentic or not.
So in other words, what Zakir Naik is saying here is that the Muslim scholars are trying to say that there's a mistake. She actually wasn't 9 years old. She was actually 18 or 19. They're basically, the reason why they're arguing that obviously is because they understand it's embarrassing that a 54-year-old man would go to bed with a 9-year-old girl who was formerly married at 6 by him, and then he consummates the marriage when she's 9 and he's 54. So clearly, Zakir Naik here would be going against all these other Muslim apologists who are arguing that she was later, she was a teenager, 18, 19. But to his credit, at least he's going by the authentic hadith, which shows that she was actually 6 when Muhammad married her and 9 when he consummated the marriage.
If it's authentic, if we cannot prove it logically, we have to feel and we have to understand that the science hasn't advanced so much to try and make us understand that hadith is the verse of the Quran. So based on this again, what I believe that the hadith is authentic, and even the age of 6 and 9 is authentic.
There you go. So there you have it. For the record, Zakir Naik believes the hadith are authentic and that she was 6 when Muhammad wrote the marriage contract, and she was 9 when he consummated the marriage. So on that point, at least to his credit, Zakir Naik is not trying to beat around the bush. The irony about this is, as I pointed out before, as I will be showing in a follow-up video, the irony about this is that there is a video of a Muslim girl asking him about his thoughts on the pedophilia that is going on in the madrasas in Afghanistan and other places in the Muslim world. And he basically denies there's any pedophilia in Islam, that all these reports are false and so forth. But the irony here is that, as we shall see, when he condemns this woman for alleging that there's pedophilia going on by imams against little Muslim children, he condemns this idea that pedophilia is forbidden in Islam. And now he's just openly admitted that Muhammad took a 6-year-old girl and then consummated the marriage with her when she was 9, which would be essentially pedophilia. So the very thing he says does not happen in Islam, the Prophet of Islam is doing, taking a 6-year-old girl. Well, she was still playing with her dolls, by the way, as the hadith tells us. She was still playing with dolls and so forth. And those of us who are parents and have children know a little girl at 6 years old is occupying her time playing with Barbie dolls and whatever it may be. And of course, 9 years old is way too young to be married. But let's listen on.
And how we justify that? When I was in the medical college, I passed in 1991, and in the 80s, we were taught in the medical college that a lady, she reaches puberty and adulthood, maturity, at the age of approximately, in India, it is about 13 to 14, 15.
Now, he's going to be arguing here about puberty and menstruation, which is going to lead to another problem with his form of argumentation here, because ironically, he's actually going to be violating or going against what the Quran teaches. So I'll explain that in a few minutes, but let's keep listening in. He's now going to say, well, some women menstruate and reach puberty at 13, 14, and others in certain places it's lower than that. So on the one hand, he's trying to say that Muhammad took a 6-year-old girl, slept with her when she was 9, but maybe she was already menstruating. And so he's kind of trying to play both sides of the field here, as if somehow 9-year-old girls are menstruating in Saudi Arabia in the 8th century, while she's still playing with dolls and everything. So let's listen in.
In America, it's about 12 to 13. And the age factor of the puberty keeps on changing depending upon the atmosphere, depending upon the surrounding, depending upon the diet, depending upon the climate. Today, medical science tells us that closer to the equator, the age of puberty is earlier. This is one point of it. And today, after science advance, we have come to know that because of the change in the atmosphere and the surrounding and the diet itself, today in America, as well as in India, there are cases in which there are sisters, mashallah, girls, at the age of 10, they reach puberty. They start having menstrual cycle. And today medical science tells us that if any lady starts the menstrual cycle at the age of 10, it is nothing unique. It's quite common.
Doesn't seem like the ladies are too convinced or overly impressed. But regardless of his argumentation, trying to say, well, they could have puberty at 10 and so forth and so on. As we're going to see in a minute, Zakir Naik has placed himself into a corner, as we will see. He's basically placed himself into a corner. He's shoved himself into a corner. So on the one hand, he's saying, yeah, Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad had sexual intercourse with her. But you know, there are some cases to be made that some women can menstruate at the age of 10. Okay, so he's almost trying to justify it in one sense, but let's listen on.
So the age of menstruation today has become a bit less, approximately 12, 13, 14. But even if a girl starts menstruating at the age of 10, even 9, it's nothing to be alarmed of. If the age of menstruation is below the age of 9, then there is a concern.
Why? Why is there a concern? What's the concern? If the age of menstruation is below the age of 9, then why is there a concern? Because as we're going to see in a minute, the Quran doesn't seem to have a concern about that at all. So we'll get to that in a minute. I'm just trying to build up our argument here.
So based on this scientific fact that we have come to today, according to the Islamic Sharia, moment a lady reaches puberty and a gent reaches puberty, they can marry.
The moment a woman reaches puberty and a man reaches puberty, they can marry. But is that what the Quran says? Is that what the Quran actually says? And so what I want us to do here at this point is I want us to consider, let me just make sure I bring up this PowerPoint here. Let me just, okay, so let me just make sure we get our PowerPoint up here. So let's take a look at what we have from the Islamic sources themselves. So the first thing we want to look at is we want to look at how old was Aisha? How old was Aisha when Muhammad took her? So instead of listening to my opinion, let's let the hadith. So we mentioned Sahih al-Bukhari, which is considered one of the most authentic of the hadiths. And there we have Aisha's own testimony, according to the hadith. Narrated Aisha that the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and then she remained with him for 9 years, that is, till his death. So he marries her when she's 6. He consummates the marriage, has intercourse with her when she is 9 years old. Now remember, at this point, he's 54, and this is a 9-year-old child. And then he stayed with her for another 9 years, which means that she was 18 years old when Muhammad died. So that's what the Islamic texts say. There's no beating around the bush here. And at least Zakir Naik is at least consistent and honest here. Now, the second hadith is Sunan Abu Dawud, which is also considered a reliable hadith in Sunni Islam. And there it says, Aisha said, the Apostle of Allah, which is a title for Muhammad, married me when I was 7 years old. The narrator, Suleiman, said, or 6 years old, he had intercourse with me when I was 9 years old. So here we have two hadith considered reliable and considered sahih, that is to say, sound, where we have incontrovertible proof that Aisha was 6 years old when Muhammad took her. And one even says 7, but then the narrator corrects it and says, or 6, and that he had intercourse when she was 9. So there is consistency here that Muhammad had intercourse with Aisha when she was 9 years old. Now, Muslims, in order to try to justify this, have tried to argue that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was very young, or Rebecca was 3 years old. Rebecca, the wife of Isaac, was three years old, or some nonsense of that sort. If you are interested in knowing more about that, please look at my YouTube channel. There's um, there's information there on the age of Aisha and so forth, and the age of Mary and the age of Rebecca. So the gymnastics, the grammatical gymnastics that Muslim apologists will go through to justify this is incredible. Rebecca was not 3 years old when Isaac took her, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, was not a 10-year-old woman or a 9-year-old woman or any of that nonsense. But what we do know is we have clear evidence here from the hadith that talks about the age of Mary. Now, what I want to do here at this point is I want to bring up some information that shows us in the Quran. If you remember what Zakir Naik was saying there, he was making the argument there that he was making the argument there that the Quran or Sharia law advocates for the marriage of Muslims who reach puberty. In order for them to be able to marry, they must reach puberty. So what we're going to do here at this point is, you will recall that Zakir Naik was saying that when a Muslim woman reaches puberty and a Muslim boy reaches puberty, then they can marry. The whole point is that menstruating or puberty, according to the Quran, is relevant in terms of marriage. So we've already seen in the hadith how Aisha was 6 years old when Muhammad wrote the marriage contract. He consummated the marriage when she was 9. And Zakir Naik acknowledges that as authentic. But then he tries to bring in the whole thing about, well, maybe menstruation could have happened earlier and so forth, as if somehow menstruation is the grounds for marriage. And that is why he says that when a Muslim woman reaches puberty and a Muslim male, a gent, reaches puberty, then they can marry. But is that what the Quran says? So let's take a look here at what the Quran actually teaches on this particular topic. And so, what does the Quran say? So, in Surah 65 of the Quran, this is from the Shir Ali translation, English translation. Here it talks about situations related to marriage and when to marry, and what do you do with divorced women, and so forth. So, we're going to look at the first 4 verses of Surah 65. O Prophet, when you divorce women, divorce them for the prescribed period, and thereafter reckon the period and fear Allah, your Lord. Turn them not out of their houses, nor should they themselves leave unless they commit manifest indecency. These are the limits set by Allah, and whoso transgresses the limits of Allah, he indeed wrongs his own soul. Thou knowest not, it may be that thereafter Allah will bring something new to pass. So when it comes to divorced women, and what do you do in cases of divorce? Well, in the case of divorce, what do is you, if you just give me a minute here, folks, I just want to make sure that I still have just a slight interruption here. You just give me a minute. I'm going to bring this back up here. One moment. Okay, let's try this again. Just had an interruption there. So let's bring this back up again. So according to the Quran, it mentions here that when it comes to divorcing women, that Muslim men are supposed to divorce them for the prescribed period. And the prescribed period basically is 3 months. You have to wait for 3 months before you divorce them. And the reason for that is to make sure that they are not pregnant. Because if they become pregnant, then of course there has to be care for the child and so forth. Now in verse 2 it says, then when they are about to reach the limit of their prescribed term, retain them with kindness or part with them in a suitable manner, and call to witness two just persons from among you, and bear true witness for Allah. Thus is admonished he who believes in Allah and the last day, and he who fears Allah, he will make for him a way out. And so here you have information, or you've got orders, commands here by Allah on how to deal with divorced women. Now, notice what happens in verse 3. And will provide for him from whence he expects not. And he who puts his trust in Allah, he is sufficient for him. Verily, Allah will accomplish his purpose, for everything has Allah appointed a measure. Now, it goes on to say, and if you are in doubt as to the prescribed period, now what is the prescribed period? As we shall see, it's actually 3 months. If you are in doubt as to the prescribed period for such of your women as have despaired of monthly courses, that is to say, women that are no longer menstruating. So this would be postmenopausal women. Women that have despaired of monthly courses, then know that the prescribed period for them is 3 months. And there's the prescribed period. So in the case of women that are no longer menstruating, they're in the post menstrual cycle. The period to wait before you marry them is 3 years. And again, for divorced women, 3 years. My apologies. The waiting period would be 3 months. And of course, as we saw already, in the case of divorce, you have to wait 3 months if you, just in case there's been a pregnancy. But notice what the Quran goes on to say, and this is extremely important here. The Quran goes on to say, and also it says, also for such as those who do not have their monthly courses yet. So I'm just going to highlight this particular portion here for us to take a look at here. Also for such as those as do not have their monthly courses yet. Well, who are those who do not have their monthly courses? Well, this would not be a case of menopause. This would be a case of girls that are pre-menopausal, those who do not have their monthly courses. Well, who are those who do not have their monthly courses? Well, girls that have not yet reached puberty. And so how would this apply? Well, this would apply to any girl that does not have had her menstrual cycle, which would mean any age. There's no age limit here. So taking a 9-year-old, taking a 6-year-old, even taking a 5-year-old, well, 5-year-old girls haven't reached their monthly courses. 6-year-old girls have not reached their monthly courses. 7-year-old girls have not reached their monthly courses, and on and on. And so the Quran seems to show here that you can take women to yourself who have not yet menstruated. And what does that mean? Well, who are the only women that don't menstruate are prepubescent children, females. And as for those who are with child, that is, those who are pregnant, their period shall be until they are delivered of their burden. And whoso fears Allah, he will provide facilities for him in his affair. So once again, let's just take a look. When it comes to taking divorced women, you have to wait 3 months in case they're pregnant. And then women who've reached the limit of the prescribed term, that is, women who are post-menopausal, you have to also wait for 3 months. And it goes on to point out here in verses 3 to 4 that you're to obviously provide for these women, obviously. But if you have doubts about the prescribed period, remember the prescribed period is to be 3 months. But the particular clause here that we are interested in is this clause here that mentions also for such as those who do not have their monthly courses yet. Well, according to this, it doesn't matter how old a female child is. You could wed a child before they've reached puberty. So when Zakir Naik says, well, according to the Sharia law, once a girl reaches puberty and a boy reaches puberty, they can marry. Not according to Surah 65, verse 4. According to Surah 65, verse 4, you don't even have to wait for the girl to achieve menstruation or puberty. And so if Zakir Naik challenges this, well, who's he challenging? Well, he's challenging none other than Allah. And so all of that to say, folks, that what we have here is, on the one hand, you have Zakir Naik admitting that Aisha was 6 years old when Muhammad took her, 9 years old when he consummated marriage, and then he goes on to admit that, yeah, those are authentic sources, but then he tries to justify, well, maybe some young girls can menstruate, and at that point, that's when you can marry them. But according to the Quran, you can take girls who have not yet reached their menstrual cycle. So which one is it, Zakir Naik? Which one is it? Which one is it? And mind you, folks, we have been waiting. I know David Wood and others. We have put out challenges for Zakir Naik to debate with us. He will not debate Western scholars in this area. And I think you can see the reason why. But the offer still stands that we are ready and willing and able to debate anytime that Zakir Naik wants to take us on. We were willing to debate him on any of these issues related to Islam and to Christianity. Now, just to confirm that what I'm saying here about Surah 65 is not something that I'm reading into the text, or I'm reading the text, misinterpreting the text. I want us to look at one of the most respected commentators, the tafsir, the commentator on the Quran, and that is, of course, that is the great commentator, Ibn Kathir. And Ibn Kathir makes clear, and I'm just trying to bring that up right here. All right, let me just bring that up. So notice here, this is from the tafsir of Ibn Kathir on Surah 65. There's Ibn Kathir's name up here on the top right corner beside my video here, which I'm going to move over. So the word at-talaq, talaq is the Arabic word for divorce. So notice what he says here. We're going to look particularly, the pertinent passages are verses 4 to 5. Notice verse 4, those in menopause, so right up here, those in menopause among your women, so that is the women who don't have menstrual cycles, for them the ida, that word ida is the Arabic word for the waiting period. The ida, if you have doubt, is 3 months. And as for those who have no courses, well, who are those who have no courses? Those who have no courses are those who do not menstruate. And who are those who do not menstruate are prepubescent girls. And as for those who are pregnant, their iddah is until they lay down their burden, that is, until they give birth. And whosoever has taqwa of Allah, he will make his matter easy for him. And this is the command of Allah, which he has sent down to you. And whosoever has taqwa of Allah, he will expiate from him his sins and will increase his reward. So he goes on to talk about the iddah, the period, that is the waiting period. The iddah of those in menopause, that is, again, women who've stopped their menses, and those who do not have menses, prepubescent, that is, premenstrual, that is, young girls. Allah the Exalted clarifies the waiting period of the women in menopause, and that is the one whose menstruation has stopped due to her old age, right? That's what menopause is. Her iddah is 3 months instead of the 3 monthly cycles for those who menstruate, which is based upon the ayah in Surat Al-Baqarah. The same for that. Notice this, folks. Very, very, very important. The same for the young right here. The same for the young. If you see my cursor there. Well, who are the young? Premenstrual. The same for the young who have not reached the years of menstruation. What does that mean? Once again, I know it sounds like I'm harping on this, folks, but I'm just trying to make it clear that I'm not making this up. I'm not misinterpreting what the Quran is saying, because Ibn Kathir is telling us in no uncertain terms, he's talking about premenstrual girls, little girls, the same for the young who have not reached the years of menstruation. Their iddah, their waiting period is 3 months, like those in menopause. Well, why would you have to wait 3 months? Well, just in case they menstruate. And this is the meaning of his saying, quote, and for those who have no courses. And so, as you can see here, the point here is very clear that even the most respected commentator in Islam, Ibn Kathir, is telling us that according to Surah 65, verses 1 to 4, one of those that you can take for wives are those who have no menses yet. And so it seems to me that Surah 65 almost seems to be trying to, without saying it out loud, it seems to be justifying Muhammad's marriage to Aisha, who would have been premenstrual. Nothing is said in the hadith about Aisha having menstruation. Nothing is said about her having blood from her menstrual cycles. Nothing. And so it's almost as if the Quran is, in many respects, trying to justify, or perhaps Muhammad himself, or whoever wrote Surah 65, seeking to justify taking a young girl to bed. And so, folks, I hope that you have found this video to be enlightening. I hope you take what I said to heart and take the sources that I've provided you. You can check them out yourself. They're all available online. And thanks again. We want to encourage you once again to subscribe to Toronto Apologetics, to like the video, and to share the video with others. Thanks again, everyone. And until next time, take care, and the Lord bless you. Bye for now.